Being a rookie in the League of Legends esports scene is kind of ridiculous in a sense because, first of all, you're expected to be top 200 in the entire server first in order to even get on the radar of professional teams. And that is somewhat abated by streamers kind of, playing for fun, but they're still really fucking good. And then also you have pro players on the ladder as well too. Although not even a lot of pro players actually try on the ladder, especially when we're talking about NA. But when it comes to other ladders, you need to be kind of a prodigy in order to even get to the top 200. I mean, even if you look at Overwatch, for instance, it's the top 500, so it's twice as big in order to even get noticed in that game itself. But aside from that, I will never be comfortable betting on a rookie. And the main reason for that is because the meta changes at a rapid pace, and most of the time there's two major changes during a split. Now, last split in Season 8, what we saw was patch 8.2, which removed Sightstone. Now, that completely changed the entire game, and it wasn't only of how junglers play, but it was how teams play. And specifically Korean teams, of course, because they relied heavily on vision, but it changed the game plan of how teams play the actual game and how you can't have any vision saturation or oversaturation, and instead you have to decide on which part of the map that you want to play towards. So that completely changed the fundamentals of the game. It's partly why also Korea lost at Worlds as well too, and I'll link the video in the description for that video of my reasoning. But 8.2, huge patch. It changed how junglers and teams operate, and if you're a rookie going into that meta, suddenly you're kind of off kilter and you don't really know what to do because everything's completely thrown out of whack. You've watched all these professional games and you're trying to get yourself into the scene and kind of know what's going on, and then suddenly they drop this change and you might become shit. Now, Summer Split started the funnel meta and then ended at the tail end of Summer Split. Now, funnel meta completely changed almost the entire game of League of Legends itself and threw everybody out of whack. So it messed up almost every single role in the entire game. And so you had to be really on your toes in order to be successful within that meta. And we also saw Reckless himself bench himself in order for Fnatic to have a better chance to succeed. So you can even see some of the veterans even have had difficulty playing in that meta. So just imagine being a rookie trying to be successful coming up in Season 8. It would be very difficult to do. Now, two of the roles in which I think are the most difficult to be successful as a rookie is probably jungle and support. They usually have it the worst, so it's even less likely that they'll succeed in their rookie split because jungle and support are very different as opposed to the solo queue aspect of jungle and support, because junglers, you have to communicate with your lanes very effectively and then decide what you want to do on the early game plan when you're in a professional team. That's often how teams operate, is the jungler will be somewhat the shot caller in the beginning and prioritize whatever lane he wants to snowball, and also along with the coach telling him which lanes should be snowballed and what their entire team composition and game plan is supposed to be. And so therefore he affects his routes going towards that, and then kind of adjusts based on the enemy jungler pressure or enemy lane pressure. Say there may be a solo kill or something, he has to adjust himself. So it's very difficult to acclimate yourself as a rookie when you're a jungler. And then when you're a support, it's all about the vision game, and it's all about setting up objectives around vision. And also within the mid game to late game, your job is very important, and oftentimes you are the initiation of the team as well too. If your team composition doesn't have a heavy tank in the top lane, usually relies on yourself in order to initiate for team fights. And so that becomes very difficult. You have to have really good communication. And as you can see, both of these roles require insane communication, and that's something that normally isn't present within solo queue. Now, back in the day, it was players coming straight from solo queue with zero team experience. So it was very difficult for a player to transition from solo queue to professional play. That's why a lot of players failed in doing so. And now we have the academy system, which somewhat acclimates themselves to the team environment so that they can get used to interacting with other teammates and things, and listening to their perspective and incorporating those ideas into their own gameplay. And that's one of the difficult parts of being a professional player and being a rookie starting out, is that you need to be able to interact with people, interact with what they may think about the game, and then incorporate that into yourself. And then you also need to be able to provide feedback. Providing feedback is a skill that you need to just develop, and it takes time, because you can go with the Reddit silver analyst and just talk about, okay, well, you did this wrong. You didn't last hit, and that's why that guy didn't die. So next time, don't mess up the last hit and we'll be able to kill that guy. It's like, no, like, let's go back and look at why it actually came down to a last hit instead. Like, let's go back a couple steps and see why we were put in such a position to begin with. And then let's go from there, instead of trying to work off of the end result problem itself. And so providing feedback is something that's very crucial when you're at a top level, because you have run out of a lot of options in order to improve yourself, because your mechanics are so great. Your game knowledge is pretty good itself at a baseline. So providing feedback has to be very specific and very nuanced in order to give high quality feedback. And then there's also the problem of receiving feedback. You need to be able to be receptive and take your teammates' opinions into account when you're doing whatever you are in lane, because you don't know their role as well as they do, because they're at a very, very high level. So maybe you might be masters at mid lane, but you're the top laner of this team and you're a very, very high challenger or something. So you should probably take the mid laner's advice when it comes to matchups and things like that, and how lane pressure is going to affect that lane itself, so then you can push up and kind of incorporate yourself into the entire team in the grand scheme of things. So receiving feedback is very crucial when it comes to just being a rookie, especially because you're going to receive a lot of feedback, and you need to be able to take that and just have a personality that is built upon improving yourself. And then you need to be able to connect with different personalities, because some of these guys, they might come from different cultures. There might be guys that come from Denmark, they're South Korea, Russia, wherever, and you might be some American guy, and all you guys don't have the same culture. There are going to be different nuances that are just completely different, and you need to take into account when you're talking to someone and trying to build a friendship or a relationship with them. So it becomes this difficult task of being able to kind of read human emotion and read a person's background in order to give context into why they do the things that they do. So that in itself will be difficult, because you don't get any of that experience within solo queue. It just comes from your own cultural background. So that would be just a culture shock itself. And then, of course, you have stage fright for rookies. Now, there are multiple examples of that, say Golden Glue and Keith McBrief. Both of these guys are quite good mechanically, but it seems that whenever they get onto the stage, they end up going bust. So it's very difficult for some rookies to overcome this stage fright. And you also have to take into account that a lot of these guys that play for 10 or 12 or 16 hours a day, they don't have a whole lot of interaction with audiences or with other people themselves. So all these different life skills of talking in front of people, talking and doing content in front of a camera, that becomes something that they need to become accustomed to. And you can get stage fright, and especially when it's offline play versus LAN play. You hear a lot of this with Counter-Strike, for instance, is a big example of that. And it's partly because of latency as well, too, because you have zero latency on LAN, which you also have zero latency on LAN in League of Legends as well, too. But it's not a first-person shooter, so it's not as crazy, but that still exists. And then, of course, you have the stage fright and the nerves and just dealing with the audience itself. And a lot of teams in Counter-Strike perform poorly on LAN, but during the online qualifiers, they may perform well during that phase. So you have different people that can just perform within their own secluded setup where they have their own computer and they're kind of in the zone, and then they get disrupted into this loud environment where the stage is booming and the crowd is cheering or booing you if that happens, right? We saw that in I think it was Chicago when that happened in the NALCS. But anyways, so these players, these rookie players, the reason why I will never bet on them is because they have all these things stacked against them. And not only that, but they need an environment that fosters new type of talent. And that has to do a lot with the coaches themselves. And when you think about coaches and just League of Legends in general, we're such a new scene that coaches don't even have much experience. So they don't have much life experience. They maybe were players beforehand, so they have been spending 12 hours a day in front of a computer as well too, so they haven't interacted or had a regular life is what you would think, or maybe a Hollywood life of, just hanging out with friends and just interacting with other people. But instead they perfected their craft of being a professional player and they put in the hours. And I'm not downplaying that, but that comes with sacrifices of maybe people skills as well too. So you have to have coaches that are able to have people skills and to kind of incorporate a rookie into the entire team and make them feel comfortable and to recognize their personality traits and then kind of mold those and chip at the bad parts of their personality so that you can shape a good rookie talent into a veteran eventually, and if they last that long, right? And then, of course, you have the veteran players. These players are the ones that are supposed to help out the coaches because they can't be there 24/7. And not only that, but you have an authoritative figure, which is the coach, talking kind of down or from a higher position to the rookie player. And so you need someone a little bit lower than that in order to be on the same level and to have empathy about whatever that they're going through, because these veteran players have gone through that. So you need these people, but you need a veteran player that is good at training rookies as well and understanding the rookie mindset. So that's very valuable. And then, of course, you need just regular good housing conditions, like good food, maybe a sports psychologist. That always helps, or a mentor, just simple things like that. So with all that encompassing, you have meta, you have team experience and how you need to just interact with humans, you have stage fright, you have coaches and veterans, like all these things are working against a rookie. And that is why I will never bet on a rookie, because they have so much going against them, and it's very unlikely that their career will extend even past their initial split, and they're kind of set up for failure in the beginning. But that's what makes it so great to when you see a rookie succeed, because you see them against all odds, against all these percentages that are working against them. And it's very satisfying when a rookie does prove me wrong, but oftentimes that's not the case.